My name is Kiera, aka Kiera's Bookshelf, and for today's video, I decided to do a reading vlog of House of Flame and Shadow. I've been wanting to do a video like this for a really long time. I've only made like 1 or 2 reading vlogs so far, and they were actually really fun, and I don't know, I decided I would do House of Flame and Shadow mainly because I kind of already started it. And I'll let you see the tabs, but I'm having a really hard time finishing it. In fact, I feel like I might be going into a reading slump because of this book, and I really don't want that to happen. I've been reading this book for literally like a month, so I decided to make this into a challenge and I guess use this as motivation. I felt like this will be a really cool video, especially because Sarah J. Maas is so big on Booktube and Booktok, and I personally am a fan of her books. I recently read the ACOTAR series, and I loved everything except for A Court of Silver Flames. Sorry if that was, like, your favorite book. But I was always a fan of Crescent City, and fun fact, I actually read Crescent City first in the SJM universe because I didn't think to read A Court of Thorns and Roses first. I honestly didn't know. I'm really excited to film this video, so if you're interested, please stay tuned. So while Bryce is kind of like super annoying to me in the book, I do think the most interesting part of this book and my favorite part is that we are learning so much about the Asteri in this. And honestly, I would just like to say finally, I feel like this should have been talked about in the second book, but I think this is what's keeping me going throughout the whole thing. Like right now, the whole gang is back together and they're going through the Fae archives, and they just discover that there used to be islands around Midgard that just like disappeared. So like things like that I think are super interesting and exciting, and like Sarah J. Maas is like known for like having battle scenes at the end, so I definitely feel like there's going to be a huge battle scene at the end of this between everybody and the Asteri, but I think it's so interesting. And I also want to point out, I love Lydia, okay? She is now not like my new favorite character, but she's definitely like top 3. And she's amazing. I love her POV so much. I honestly think Therion's POV is like my least favorite, but as the story like progresses, it's not as like annoying, I guess, especially because like I said, everyone's back together again. So that's just something that I think is really interesting, and yeah, I'm excited to see where the story goes. Okay, so I really don't like how Bryce is acting in this book. Like, I've heard people say that Bryce is annoying, but to see it firsthand is just like baffling. Like, literally, I don't even understand how this started. Like, Bryce and Hunt, like, everyone is basically at a dinner because they met like some new people and they're trying to figure out ways to, I guess, like, figure out who the Asteri is and things like that. And Hunt had went through a lot of trauma with Baxian and Rune because they were held in the dungeons while Bryce was literally like with Nesta and Azriel in their world. And granted, she didn't mean to go there, but it still doesn't like dismiss the point that like she was actually gone and they were literally being tortured in dungeons. And I noticed like there's a lot of like tension between Hunt and Bryce in this book, and not like in the romantic way. Like there's a lot of like animosity, I guess is more like the right word. And it's mainly just because they were all tortured. And Bryce, like, she just comes back and she's just like just not caring. She really, I feel like she's barely checked on Hunt, and like they'd never really, I feel like for a couple of pages they really should have like gotten deep and talked about each other's experiences, but mainly Hunt, because Bryce literally wasn't tortured or anything. Like, she was just held, and then like, you know, like, honestly, Bryce's situation was just, that was nothing compared to Hunt and Rune and Baxian. So I don't know, and I feel like not once did Bryce ever apologize for getting them into this mess, because she literally got them into this mess in the second book. Like, that's crazy. And I don't know, I just, like, there's a certain scene that I'm going to read, and it's just so, like, irritating. Welcome to my life. Hunt was frowning deeply, and Bryce added to him, unable to help herself. You don't need to feel guilty about that one, you know. He glared at her, and the others made themselves scarce. What does that mean? Hunt asked quietly. It wasn't the time or place, but Bryce said, I can't get a read on you, like if you even want to be here or not. Of course I do, Hunt growled, eyes flashing. She didn't back down. One moment you're all in, the next you're all broody and guilty. Don't I have a right to feel that way, he hissed, and the others have already reached the table. You do, she said, keeping her voice low, though she knew the others could hear them. One of the downfalls of hanging with Veneer. But each of us made choices that led to this. The weight of that's not only on you, and it isn't. I don't want to talk about this. He started walking toward the center of the room. Across the room, she met Baxian stare from where he was pulling out a chair at the table. Give him time, the hellhound look seemed to say. Be gentle with him. Like, why are you making this so difficult, I guess? Like, I don't know. Like, it's like, I feel like throughout the series, it was kind of shown that Bryce was super conceited and, like, you know, she just didn't care about anyone. She was a party girl and whatever. And I feel like that was fine in the first book. But now that we, like, know so much about these characters, especially about Hunt, and, like, Bryce and Hunt's relationship has deepened since the first book, like, I feel like Bryce just literally has no empathy. She has no compassion. I don't know. I think it's just interesting to, like, I guess, go from reading Crescent City 1 and 2, taking a break, and then binging ACOTAR, and just seeing, like, the difference between, like, Feyre and Bryce. And, like, it's like, as I read this book, I just realize how mediocre of a main character Bryce is compared to Feyre. And honestly, it just makes me interested in seeing, like, what her other main characters are like in the Throne of Glass series, just to compare. Like, I just want to compare everything and just see who is my favorite and least favorite main character from the SJM universe, because like right now, like, yeah, Bryce is at the bottom and I feel like she might stay at the bottom, but it's just interesting. And I don't know, I just hate how she was written. It's really sad. Okay, so something interesting just happened in the story. So King Morven is talking to Rune, and he's kind of like talking about how he doesn't agree with like Bryce, mainly because like he doesn't consider her a princess the way he would consider Rune to be a prince. And I thought that was really, really interesting because I feel like it kind of took me back to a little bit of the background in the first book. And I say that because he says, "What are your sister's intentions in coming here?" "Bryce told you," Rune said tightly. "She wants information." "On what?" "The sword and knife for one thing. The rest is classified." Morven's eyes darkened to black as night. "And does she plan to claim Evelyn for herself?" Rune burst out laughing. "What? No. If she did, I wouldn't tell you. But trust me, this place," he surveyed the dark, crypt-like hall, "this isn't her style. Just ask my father." "That is another thing. Your sister must have done something to him. How else would she come to possess his journal? If she has, it didn't involve trying to claim his crown. She said nothing about it." Rune glared at the king, and again, "If she's planning some sort of fey coup, why the hell would I tell you about it? Because you are true fey, not some half-breed." I think that's interesting because I really forgot that Rune and Bryce are half siblings. Like, I don't know why I keep thinking that, like, they just had the same parents. I don't know. That's really, really interesting. And I think, like, it was kind of interesting that he brought up that Rune is also Starborn, because, like, I completely forgot. Like, I don't know why I thought, like, I only remembered that Bryce was the Starborn one. I guess because of the whole star in her chest thing, and because that was such a big plot to, like, the story overall. And I feel like Rune just doesn't have anything like that, so I don't know. I think that's interesting. And another thing I noticed is he brought up that he's Fae, and he agrees with like the old laws that Fae should marry Fae, and he's pretty much saying because she's with Hunt, that also just like ruins her nobility, and he just can't take her as seriously as he would Rune, because Bryce is with Hunt, who is an archangel and who isn't Fae, specifically who isn't Fae royalty. That's really, really cool. I think this was important to bring up in the story, and I don't know why it kind of reminded me of when Bryce and Rune had went to see like the fortune teller in the beginning of the series, and Rune was told that the royal bloodline would end with him, and he thought that meant that he would die. But like reading this, I think that just means no one is going to consider Bryce to be considered a part of the royal bloodline because she's with Hunt. So that's why it will end with Rune, and I think that's really interesting how like I guess like prejudice the Fae are, specifically like Fae royalty. So yeah, that was just an interesting thing, and I don't know, I really liked this part in the story. And I also liked that at the end of this chapter, because this was chapter 51, Declan and Flynn also kind of remind Rune that he's like a prince, not like in the same way that the other guy did, like that King Morven did, but like Rune and Declan were just like kind of with him, and Lydia too. Actually, I just noticed that Lydia said, "You're a prince, so start acting like one." And I will admit that, like, yeah, Rune has not, like, he doesn't want the royalty status, and that's fine, but I feel like he kind of needs to step up, especially with everything that's going on. So that was just like another reminder that, I don't know, maybe like this is her way of saying Rune has a bigger part to play later in the story or not, but I don't know. I think it was just really, really cool to just throw that little reminder in there, like, for the people who don't feel like rereading the series just to find out like that little detail. Can I just say, I think it's so funny that like everyone always forgets that Flynn has magic in this book, because like I totally forgot too. Like if she hadn't mentioned it, I honestly would have just assumed he was like human or something, and I honestly don't even remember like what type of magic he has. So that's kind of funny. Okay, so I am officially on chapter 55 of the book, which is Hunt's POV, and I think, like, now that I've gotten this far in the book, I will say that my favorite POVs in this are Hunt, Lydia, and I honestly really like Rune's POVs. I think they're really, really good, and I don't know, I feel like Rune is so underrated that, like, I don't know, I just care so much about everything that he has to say, especially because a lot of it has to do with Lydia, and I love them together. I like Bryce's POVs, but like, I don't know, it's just, I think it's refreshing, and I'm really happy that like Sarah J Maas started like switching POVs like halfway through the series. I do kind of wish that she kind of would let you know when the POVs are switching, because like I literally, this is a different page, but I literally just write it myself. Like this is Bryce's POV. I just write all the POVs myself so I don't get confused. So that's really like the only thing I don't like. I think it would probably look more organized if she let everybody know too. Like, I don't know. And I think it's so funny how like I've seen like a lot of reading vlogs and reviews on Goodreads and stuff, and everyone hates Therion's point of views. I will say they are definitely the most boring. They definitely are. I don't know, like I feel like Therion could have been such a, like, he could have been a way cooler character if like Sarah J Maas wrote him differently. Like, I don't know, like the concept of mermaids and like the ocean queen and all of that, and like that's really, really cool, but like I don't know, maybe she should have made them scarier, like sirens or something, because then it could actually, like, I don't know, like I feel like they're just kind of there, like the ocean people and the river people, like I don't know. So I always like, I don't skip the POVs like a lot of people do. Like I've heard so many people say they skip it. I don't really skip it per se, but I definitely like, I read a lot of it, but a lot of it's skimmed, especially because like, I don't know, I think in the beginning of the story Therion's POVs were more interesting because they had to do with the Viper Queen. But yeah, I don't know, it's just something that I noticed. Okay, can I just say I love Baxian so much, and I wish he had more scenes with Bryce, honestly. Literally, I'm pretty much, yeah, I'm at 500 pages now, which I feel like it's such an accomplishment every 100 pages. It's just amazing. But anyway, yes, so Baxian and Bryce are talking a little bit about Danica, and I don't know, like, and pretty much like Bryce is just saying like the wolves are way better than the Fae, and like, you know, the Fae suck. Like pretty much just her just saying that she hates the Fae. Like she has like pretty much the entire series. But I like that Baxian is kind of like trying to bring her back to reality by saying like, you know, the wolves had their problems too, which is why Danica was trying to change it. And granted, it didn't work out because she got like killed for it. I think Bastian is just trying to tell Bryce like, you know, it can be worse. And I feel like she needed to hear that. And honestly, I wish someone would kind of like knock some sense into Bryce, because like, I don't know, I feel like she's just really conceited right now, and she just swears. Like, I just don't like the whole all Fae or bad thing, because it was also mentioned like, oh, your brother's not bad, you know, you're like, Bryce has Fae friends and they're not bad. So it's like Bryce is constantly needed to be reminded that certain Fae are bad, but not all of them are. But it's like, it's just not registering for her, I guess. So I'm at the point where the gang meets Sathea, who is Fae, and she is considered Fae royalty to King Morvern. I think that's how I pronounced it last time. But she basically starts working with them, and which is really cool. And she is Flynn's sister, and she is engaged to Therion now, which is really interesting. And I think that kind of adds something to Therion's story, because I will say his story was getting a little boring. But I decided to record at this point because I noticed something that's really, really interesting. And it's basically about Sathea, they are all going into a bunch of caves because they are all trying to figure out how to defeat the Asteri. So she ultimately is, I guess, a part of their group now. I'm not sure if this will be permanent, but at this point, I kind of like her. So if she ends up staying, that'd be really cool. And she's basically asking Bryce about like what her plans are for, you know, when she defeats the Asteri and what she's going to do after that. And I think it's actually really interesting and kind of eye-opening to see like Bryce is so fueled with hatred. It seems like she's only kind of thinking about herself, and she's thinking short term. She's not thinking long term of what will happen if and or when they defeat the Asteri. And I thought that was interesting, especially because Sathea, basically, they saw carvings about like Pegasuses. Yeah, that's how you say it. And I guess they're like extinct now. And so like things like that, they just noticed like the Asteri, I guess, like wiped them out and stuff. So like they just started thinking of how many things would still be there if the Asteri didn't, you know, get their hands on them and things like that. And I saw this one point where Sathea goes up to Bryce and she says, "Well, you don't seem to want anything to do with the Fae." "Bingo," Bryce said. "Yet you're here bearing our two most sacred artifacts. 3 if you count the horn. You bear 3 of our most sacred artifacts, yet you plan to do what with the Fae?" "Nothing," Bryce said. "You're right, I want nothing to do with them. No offense." But Sathea said, "Why?" "The Fae are not my favorite people. They never have been. But after this spring, even more so. I really don't want to associate with a group of cowards who locked out innocents the day demons poured into our city, and who seem intent on doing that again on a larger scale here on Avalon." Some of us had no choice but to be locked in our villas, Cynthia said tightly. My parents forbade me from. I never let something being forbidden stop me from doing it, Bryce said. Cynthia glared but went on. If we survived all this, what then? What do you mean, what then? What do you do with the sword and knife, with the horn? Let's say your wildest hopes about the Asteri come true, and we find the knowledge here or in the archives to help defeat them. Once they're gone, do you keep these objects when you want nothing to do with our people? Are you saying I shouldn't keep them? I'm asking you what you plan to do with them and yourself. I'm changing the model of Team Caves, Bryce announced. It's now mind your own business. So I find that to be like a really important scene because it just shows like how Bryce does not have it all planned out the way she kind of wants everyone to think she does. And I don't know, I feel like it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Like, it's a good thing because you can kind of, like, it's a reminder that she's not perfect and she doesn't know everything, but it's a bad thing because it just shows that, like I said, she's fueled with hatred and she kind of doesn't have a plan. Like, she's just kind of winging it. And I don't think that's a good idea because, especially like after everything that happened in the second book with everybody ending up pretty much being like fugitives and like enemies and stuff, like enemies to their I guess society or realm. Like, I feel like you need to have a plan for what you're going to do after this gigantic mission. And I don't know, so like things like that, it just kind of annoyed me about Bryce, I guess. And I already know, because this is just the theme in the books, I already know, like she says she doesn't know what she plans to do, but I already know towards the end she's going to do something and then say, oh, I planned it all along, because that's kind of just how Sarah J. Maas is writing this, which is kind of ridiculous, but it's very entertaining. I just feel like that is just like I just think it's okay to have main characters, you know, not know what they're going to do next and things like that. But yeah, I also want to add the Autumn King just caught up with them, and I don't know, I think that's really, really exciting. I hate the Autumn King, but I think this is what we need to kind of like, I guess, pick things up a little bit, because it was kind of dragging with just all of them being together, because like it just seemed like they were just kind of like walking around. So I'm really, really happy this is about to pick up. Okay, so I think I reached a point in the story where I'm going to stop the vlog but continue reading. I definitely think while I'm vlogging, I'm reading like a lot slower because I'm focusing a lot on like how the shots look and stuff, but I'm really, really happy that I did this. Like, I read a lot, and I'm gonna be honest, I think the filming kind of gave me motivation, just like I thought in the beginning that it would, so that's really, really good. Overall, like, I'm really proud of myself, because like there was actually so many times where I wanted to stop, but I think I'm finally at a point in the story where I want to keep reading. Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's really like the exact estimate of how many pages I read for this, but like just overall, like a lot of progress was made, and yeah, like I'm just so happy. And yeah, I feel like in the beginning I was scared I was going to go into a reading slump in the beginning, or during the video, but I'm definitely going to continue reading this. And yeah, I stopped at page 500, and now there's 835 pages left. So yeah, I can definitely do this. I think I'm going to try to finish this book before my next video. If that happens, I'm honestly going to be really surprised, but yeah, I'm going to see if I can do that, because I'm really excited to like just start reading some other books. I hate that I'm like such a slow reader, but yeah. And I'm actually almost at part 3, so that's kind of exciting. I literally have like this much left to read before I'm at part 3. So yeah, I think that's going to be my goal today, just to read this much. So from 500 to 577. So thank you for watching, and if you stayed this long, like, wow. Leave like an emoji, or just let me know like what book you're currently reading. Are you currently going through a reading slump? And if so, how do you get over it? Do you force yourself to read like I did, or do you just kind of leave it alone and just when you feel like reading, you feel like reading? But yeah, again, thanks for watching, and this has been Kira's Bookshelf. Bye. Say hi, Draco. Oh.